Good afternoon. Welcome to our last lunch meeting of spring 2025. So thank you all for coming out today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cindy Gueli. I'm president of AOI this year. We have what I think is going to be a great presentation here today. So thank you for being here on Juneteenth. So I want to recognize and celebrate Juneteenth as well. And I also want to give a special shout out to the club and to the staff that's here who came in on a federal holiday just so that we could have this here today. So thank you all of you for being here on the federal holiday. For anybody who is unfamiliar with Juneteenth, it's only been a federal holiday for a couple of years, but that is celebrating, or I should say commemorating, the unofficial end of slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued January 1863, and 2.5 years later, it took that long for that information to make its way to enslaved people in the westernmost Confederate state of Texas. And the Union troops came in on June 19th, 1865, and declared that all enslaved people in the Confederate states were declared free by President Lincoln. It'll take until December of 1865 to pass the 13th Amendment to make it officially and legally for the U.S. to abolish slavery. But it is a federal holiday. It is being celebrated here in D.C., and I think there are still some celebrations tonight if you don't get washed out and in the storms that are tonight, if you are looking still to celebrate. So again, thanks for coming out for that. We have some new members to talk about, and I think I'm going to hit this to Carolyn, Michelle, our treasurer, to tell us about our new members who are here. So we usually talk about new members who are not here, so it's very exciting for us to see you.
Let's start with Janice McKinney. Could you stand, please? Don't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to introduce yourself?
Janice McKinney, and I'm a retired military historian, and I'm here because I have friends who are here.
Welcome. And Marjorie Lightman. And Marjorie just brought her application today, so she's like the new member.
It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Marjorie Lightman. I live in the Southwest, and I was an ANC commissioner when the Waterfront was being built. So I look forward to today's presentation. Could you stand up, please?
Welcome to our new members, and I believe we need to officially vote on their membership.
So we'll put both Marjorie and Janice to a vote to accept their memberships. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? All right, you're official. Thank you. And because Marjorie is Southwest, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, can I just see a show of hands of everybody who lives in Southwest or lived in Southwest? Because I think we have a relatively big group today. All right. That'll be fun. This will be a fun discussion today then. Thank you.
Should we introduce any visitors?
Would anybody, I don't want to put people on the spot. How about you give a wave, and if you would love to introduce yourself, we would love to hear about you. But I don't want to call on you in class and make you.
I'd like to introduce our guest, Michael Lynch. He's the fifth generation Washingtonian. He's been in Washington all of his life, and his professional career was at the Library of Congress. So,
Nice.
very happy to be here.
And Michael Lynch has driven to the Arctic. So if you are a travel buff, go talk to Michael. And Judy has someone.
I'd like to introduce my guest, Aiden Jones.
He is the secretary, did I say, of the Committee of 100.
Oh, nice. Great. And if I might add, can I mention your mom? So, and his mother, who is an economist, worked for Kiplinger, and so worked at Kiplinger's for in the 30s and 40s and 50s, late 30s, early 40s, and so we know that the Kiplingers were hiring female economists as early as the 30s and 40s. So we're going to give them props for that too. For that.
Excuse me, I'm Barbara Ehrlich, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Jennifer Swanson, young, vibrant, potential member of this association. Well, we know each other for many reasons. We've traveled to the National Cherry Blossom Festival. Jennifer has been a queen of the Cherry Blossom Festival in the past. She has traveled in that capacity to Japan.
Nice.
And continues to go back to Japan, is actually fluent in Japanese, and is a very wonderful friend and would be a wonderful member of this organization.
Excellent.
My other wonderful friend and guest is Beryl Blaney, and Beryl can speak for herself.
Hi, I'm Beryl, and I actually work at St. Augustine's Episcopal Church in Southwest DC. I'm their facilities manager and do conference and events, and I am very delighted to be here with all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you, welcome visitors, and
yeah, thank you. And to connect that to us, so if Jennifer, you've not seen our talk about Eliza Skidmore and the creation of the cherry trees, we had the author of her biography come and talk to us. So available on YouTube if you want to see that talk. And I think that is a church that you also worked on, Monty, right? That to redevelop or renovate in some way. So we are all interconnected here. Very Washington of us to all be interconnected here this way today. Speaking of YouTube and our talks, we are going to put into our official record our previous meeting in May, which was Martin Murray's talk on Walt Whitman. And so we're going to consider that on YouTube to be our official record of the meeting. And you can, if you didn't get a chance to hear that, you can also watch that both on our website and on our YouTube channel as well. If you have not renewed yet, we do encourage you to do so. You will start getting some reminders if you have not renewed yet. So please, you can do that online, you can do that in person, and you can email us if you are unsure if you have renewed or not, and we can help you with that as well. AOI is celebrating our 160th year, as we have been talking about all year, and we have been getting to know some of our founding fathers. I say founding fathers because we only had founding fathers. They were all fathers. So as part of our kind of Project 160, we are going to get to know our original treasurer that was around in December 1865. His name is Nicholas Callan, and he was, among other things, our original treasurer. He is our first founder that we've been talking about who was actually born in D.C. His father, also named Nicholas, came to the U.S. He left Ireland after participating in the ill-fated 1789 Irish Rebellion.
An immigrant.
Yes. He's getting the job done against the British rule. He moved to D.C. soon after the federal government moved to D.C., and he became a teacher, and he ended up teaching several people who were AOI founding members, as a matter of fact. They had him as students. Our Nicholas, AOI's Nicholas, was born in 1808. It's hard to see, but this is Nicholas at age 67. So I've blown up this little circle on the photo, and the photo itself is of AOI members on the steps of the Treasury building to commemorate AOI's 10th anniversary in 1875. And the picture is a bit grainy because it's taken from a 1904 Evening Star article, which was describing how the original version of this photo had been transported and displayed at the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, known as Louisiana Purchase Expedition, and immortalized in the film Meet Me in St. Louis. Yes, Judy Garland, Vincent Minnelli. This picture was part of the District of Columbia tent that they set up to represent all things that were important, the important people and places and things representing the District of Columbia. So they thought that AOI was important enough to be honored at the World's Fair. And I just mentioned that these are founding fathers, but there's actually a couple of women in this photo as well. And so we will do some digging to see if we could possibly identify these people that were here. As you can see on the slide, this is his obituary in the upper right-hand corner. He's described as having been tall and venerable of form. He was one of the chief organizers and most active workers of AOI. So this gives us a little bit of sense of his both physical nature and his temperament as well. He lived and worked for decades. Can you see this? Just a little bit so you can see. And we'll scoot them back. There you go. So he lived and worked in the building that's on the left. The 1418 F Street. It had a different address when he was actually living there. And that is near the Willard, just west of the Willard. AOI also held meetings there often, and they also held meetings down the block at the old Corcoran office building, which is at F and 15th, where the Washington Hotel, the Hotel Washington is right now. This is the first Corcoran office building, so if it doesn't look that familiar, it's there were two. This is the first one that was up there, and this is where that group photo usually was hanging. So this is where they took it to go to St. Louis. It's also to connect back to last week, where Walt Whitman worked during the Civil War as an Army paymaster, was this building at 15th and F. So Nicholas worked as a bank clerk initially, and then as a notary, justice of the peace, commissioner of deeds and patents. He served on what was called the Common Council, which is like the DC Council, for 14 years, and he served as president for several years. He was prominent in establishing and building St. Matthew's Catholic Church, which was originally at 15th and H. It was later moved to 17th and Rhode Island and became a cathedral. He was important enough to be invited to the White House dinner for the Japanese delegation, where they discussed the cherry trees in 1909. He was a member of the Young Catholics Friends Society, Temperance Society. He helped found the St. Joseph's Male Orphan Asylum, and before he died in 1886, he also served as AOI secretary for about a dozen years. So he maintained his involvement both as a member and as an officer. Nicholas's brother, John Francis, it's a great image. I'm thinking about getting these made on postcards, and that's going to be our logo from now on. His brother, John Francis Callan, was also an AOI founding member. And if you see at the top, there was an article about AOI. It seems that his brother actually gave AOI its name. He suggested the oldest inhabitants. He was also the secretary on the committee for AOI's constitution. He died at age 61 in 1871, so that was before that photo was taken, so we don't have a photo of him. If you remember my discussion of William Bradley, about the former vice president, or the initial vice president, who also owned Annalaston Island, which is now Teddy Roosevelt Island in Georgetown, he had invited members to frolic on his island, and that ended up being the subject of a political cartoon, which this was drawn by George Yost Coffin, who used to freelance around town for different newspapers. So it seems that John Francis and Nicholas were participating in leapfrogging. And there's just so many possibilities to discuss about that. that I'm going to leave it there, but the visual is just, I think, fabulous. Enthusiastic session of the oldest inhabitants. So we're not going to be doing that anytime soon. So as this article actually shows, Nicholas died after increasing feebleness, which I think we can all relate to. And he was 10 years, he had served as the secretary of AOI. He's buried at Mount Olivet Cemetery in Northeast. He was outlived by his wife, Christina Van Ness Callan. So she was connected to the Van Nesses. And he was only survived by 2 of his 9 children. 4 died under the age of 5, and 1 died at 17. So yes, get your vaccines. So this is a picture of his son on the upper right. This is Cornelius, who was a doctor, and he's one of his son who survived him. So I can give you some idea of what Nicholas maybe look like. Neither of his surviving children got married or had children of their own, and they are all buried together at Mount Olivet. If you can see on the bottom article, it says that Nicholas kept a diary of his early life in Washington, all of his impressions about DC. There are articles that mention it, but I have not been able to track it down. So if anybody knows of this diary, or if anybody wants to do some detective work and wants to try to help track it down, where this might have gone, since he did not have anybody any descendants to maybe keep it in the family, it's probably sitting in an archive somewhere. Possibly in the DC archives. So if anybody wants a project to do it, let's talk. Let's talk about that. So that is Nicholas, and you can go visit Nicholas and his family in Mount Olivet. That's going to lead me to our announcement of what we're calling our Campaign 160. We have tried in AOI to keep our membership costs low and our lunch costs low. So because of that, maybe you would feel generous enough in our 160th year to donate $160 to AOI, and a portion of that money would go towards digitizing our records so that we would have, for the next 160 years or so, we would be able to keep AOI records together, accessible, searchable, and all of these names from the past connected together and connected to us here at AOI. So we will be mentioning this again, of course, but I wanted to give you fair warning that you will be hearing about it again. And if you're already inspired, please let us know. Yes?
Was that 260 or 160?
1,060. No, I'm kidding. But since you're asking, I feel like I'm an auctioneer. Do I hear 260, 360? Yes, any amount. We are actually, it could be $1.60 actually. We are happy to have anything. That's one of our goals going forward, is to try to, we do have a lot of our records at the DC History Center, but only a portion of those photos and a portion of all of those records are digitized. So we want people to be able to access them not just here in DC, but across the country. As we know, we're on a mission in general to protect DC history, and that is part of how we are going to do that. Speaking of and mentioning of the DC archives, we'd sent around an email talking about the fact that Mayor Bowser was defunding the not already in progress, but the about to break ground DC archives at UDC. Many of you sent letters and emails, and I talked to Kim Bender, who is the head of the DC Archives Foundation, last night, and she said all of those have made a difference. So a big thank you to everybody. She testified. AOI sent a letter testifying on behalf of the DC Archives, which we'll put on social media so you can get a chance to see it, but happy to send you a copy of that as well. So that is on record. And it does seem that everybody on the council is aware that there has been pushback. There have been letters in support of the archives. It's getting press in the Washingtonian and the Washington Post. She's doing an interview today. But archivists, historians, the Organization of American Historians, DAR, the DC History Center, the Council of State Archivists have all been sending letters in support. So if you have not yet sent an email, you can go to their website, the DC Archives Foundation. There is a template for a letter that you would be able to just copy and paste and send to your council member or send to the mayor's office to keep that pressure on, because that decision is going to be made in a couple of weeks. We will keep you posted, let you know what happens with it, and hopefully be able to give some good news. But if not, it will be a continued and ongoing fight to keep it as an independent, climate-controlled, technologically updated, accessible to researchers building, and not, as the current budget offers, to be an office in the Sumner School museum and a warehouse somewhere. So all of those records would no longer be accessible. So thank you for all of you who mentioned it and talked about it and kept that up. Last month, Bill mentioned the uncertain fate of the Capitol Skyline Hotel, which we have had a relationship with AOI. If you were unfamiliar with it, it was designed by Morris Lapidus, who was an architect most famed for the Fontainebleau in Miami, that hotel. So very much mid-century modern architecture. It was constructed in 1962, which is the same year that he also constructed what is now the Washington Plaza Hotel. He designed that as well, which is on Logan Circle. So they came about the same time. There has been an application to tear it down with the DC government, so that will unfortunately no longer be in existence soon. Our member Randy Clark sent us that information, but if you want to read more about the history of the hotel, member John DeFerrari writes the Streets of Washington Substack. If you are unfamiliar with that, he does an amazing job identifying current and buildings that are no longer here, kind of in the vein of James Good, to look at these and look at the history of individual buildings, houses, and streets. So I highly, highly recommend that if you are unfamiliar with it. Last note on this. So we're talking about protecting DC history. In April, Knight Kiplinger was saying that in order to protect DC history and protect history in general right now, it's going to be up to all of us as a collective to preserve and to keep what we can, where we can, how we can, until we are hopefully on the other side of trying to erase some history that we have here in DC. On that note, we are taking suggestions, if people have that, of ways that you think that AOI can better protect DC history, or if you know of other organizations or other ways that people are doing this that we can support. So if we can, like our kind of letter writing campaign for the DC Archives, if there's anything else that comes up, please let us know. And if you have any other ideas, please let us know and contact us. Andrea.
Is there any effort out there yet? They just announced they're cutting all the funding for the Latino History Museum as well as. Can you repeat?
Andrea is saying that they've just have been announcing that they're cutting all the funding for the Latino History Museum as well as the Anacostia Museum. So federal funding will be, I think, cut off for both of those. And I have not seen anything so far that has been a campaign to try to fill that gap in terms of finances. But let us know, if you hear of something, let us know. And would it be helpful to just even have announcements like that we do put up things on our website and our social media that will alert you to some of these, but we can certainly maybe have a separate page on our website that just lists some of these things that, at the very least, to keep you informed. So if you, again, have any ideas, let us know about that. On another development note, events going on. The National Capital Planning Commission and the redevelopment of Pennsylvania Avenue. They're going to be doing another public briefing by Zoom, so you can do this in the comfort of your own home, probably in pajamas, and you can watch. It's June 24th at 6:30 p.m. You can go to their website, the NCPS website, and register for that, and you can listen to hear what they are planning for Pennsylvania Avenue in terms of redevelopment. The DC History Center is opening an exhibit on schools in DC, and that's going to be open at the end of the month at the DC History Center if you are interested in that. Fort Stevens Day, if you have not had a chance to go to it, is July 11th and 12th. We will be putting this flyer on our social media, so you can always go and take a look at it for more information. And where else you can go to the where else can you go? Which website can you go to for more information? Oh, it's only going to be on the 12th. Okay. About it too hot. Okay, so go to the National Park Service website too. We'll have it. And that is July 12th, and that is the anniversary of the battle that saved the Capitol. So there are all sorts of events. It's free. There are living history reenactors. There's music. There will be historian talks. There will be activities for children, and food, water, and restrooms are going to be available. So important for Fort Stevens Day. Absolutely. And she's actually here today. Our member Andrea Seeger. It's Seeger, correct? Like Pete Seeger. Exactly. Right. Any relation? None. Okay. She's not going to be singing for us, but she has just released her latest book. And this is 22 Walks in Washington That You Must Not Miss. And so this capitalizes your previous book was 111 places to visit, right? And available.
Please shop local, support our neighbors, support local bookstores and local gift shops and local museum shops.
So it'll be available at all of those places. As well as probably independent bookstores online as well. Yes. If you want.
Yeah. Shop at, the online bookshop.org?
Yes.
Politics and Prose always has our books and stuff.
Great. Well, you can talk to Andrea. Will be back here. I'm sure you would be happy to answer questions at the end as well. And since there's a copy here, I'm sure she would allow you to take a look at it as well if you want to take a look at it before you leave. Absolutely. So I'm going to turn it over to Nelson for our trivia question. I don't want to announce who our next speaker is in September because I have a feeling this is maybe going to connect to it. Because there's a great, if you have not seen in the back, there's a great campaign poster in the back.
Yes, Carol Schwartz will be our guest speaker in September, and she had a 40-year, of course, career in local politics and civic activity, and she'll have some very interesting stories to tell. I've been talking to her, and she's told me about things that I never heard of, and I think it'll be very interesting about behind-the-scenes activities. And after they were in office, she and Marion Barry became very close friends and saw each other on a regular basis and reminisced about their times in local politics here. She'll have some stories about that, too. So come and bring a guest next time. Let's fill the room. It'll be a very interesting experience, I think. I wanted to also mention about I have some material back there about the Anacostia Neighborhood Museum. My wife and I went out there yesterday to visit, and they have a very good exhibit on there in the history of local schools. And but anyway, it's very important to the community. They have a lot of programs for youth, from preschool through 8th grade, and I have some information about how you can learn more about it. I'd recommend going out there maybe in the fall. They have a wonderful garden that you can enjoy sitting outside. It's really in a very, very rural-like area. When we were out there were deer actually grazing right in front of the museum, and including a fawn that was probably born this spring. And please, there's some information back there. Please help yourself to that information. As was mentioned, AOI should get involved in some way if we can about preserving that museum. I go way back to John Kennard when he opened the building, the first place in the old George Washington Carver Theater on Martin Luther King. And so I have a connection way back with the institution. And there's also information back there connected with our history question of today, which I'll get to now. What we call the Wilson Building today was called the District Building, but when it was first opened in 1908 on 4th of July, they had a big gala there. You can read about the front page from the Star back there about what went on. They had parades and a Marine band and fireworks at night, and the paper said there were over several thousand people in attendance, and there were a lot of AOI people there that day, according to the Washington Star. And so that's where my trivia question comes in. The Star reported that there were quite a few people, and I put my glasses on. Badges of the oldest association of the oldest inhabitants were in evidence everywhere. What happened to badges? Do we need to reinstitute our badges? They could tell who was there from AOI. They were wearing badges, according to this account. But anyway, reported that there were members there from AOI who were over 90 years of age. So the trivia question is, how many members of AOI were there that day who were over 90 years old?
10.
No, it's lower than that. This is 120 years ago almost, so people weren't living as long. 3, you got it. Okay, 3. Now here's some information about the 3, which is very interesting. Sitting in the midst of the happy throng in the speaker's stand in front of the building was former Lieutenant James Johnson, a veteran of the Metropolitan Police Department and the oldest living native son of the District of Columbia. Was one of the most enthusiastic participants in the celebration. He said, "I never expected to live to see anything like this." He said, "But so many wonderful things have happened with recent years that I have gotten over the habit of being surprised." Former Lieutenant Johnson was born in Washington 91 years ago, and only 2 foreign-born members of the association, foreign-born, so we look at immigrants, are older than Lieutenant Johnson. They didn't give their ages in the association. And he further spoke recently today of the remarkable contrast between the present time and the stormy days when he first stood at the helm of one of the local police precincts more than 40 years ago. So there we were. We were there at the dedication of the Wilson Building. And please take some time and you can read, there's a nice picture of the throng in front of the building being dedicated, and the front page story from the Washington Star is also back there. And please help yourself to information. I have some more information about the Anacostia Museum and how you can help financially. They are raising money. They want to set up a foundation to support it, to really keep that location and that building. It's a magnificent building. And if it was lost, it would really be a blow to the community and to the whole city if its functions were just transferred downtown to the African American Museum downtown. So thank you.
I think there also used to be a shuttle, I don't know if there still is, that will take you to the Anacostia Museum from one of the museums on the mall. So if you're interested in, take a look at that. Well, today, thanks to Carl Cole, we have Monty Hoffman, who's going to, has kindly agreed to be in conversation with us. So he's not exactly sure, I think, what to expect today. But we will all be kind, right, as we are here. We're all honest and kind. He is founder and chairman of Hoffman Associates. He grew up in Michigan and Pennsylvania and graduated from the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown with a degree in civil and structural engineering technology before moving to DC in 1984. He worked as a project engineer and then a project manager before branching out with a partner to start their own company in 1993. He started out with one townhouse on 16th Street, moved on to developing luxury condos, and has now completed about 70 mixed-use and urban developments in the DC area and has a second office in Raleigh, North Carolina. Monty currently leads the company's business development, market strategy, and design initiatives for every project. Monty has been recognized in Washington's Smart CEO's Future 50 list and the Washington Business Journal's Power 100. He is a founding board member of the DC Students Construction Trades Foundation, which provides educational and apprenticeship opportunities. You know of it? Yes, for district students interested in design, engineering, and construction. He served on the DC Public Schools Engineering Advisory Board and Southwest Business Improvement District, and is a current board member of the Federal City Council. So he's here today to talk about the wharf. So if you're unfamiliar with the transformation of that mile-long stretch along the Washington Channel, it is 3.5 million square feet of mixed-use development. It's got 75 restaurant and stores, entertainment venues like the 6,000 seat Anthem and office buildings, 7 condo and apartment buildings, and 4 hotels. Phase 1 opened in 2017. Phase 2 opened in 2022. And just this year, the Canadian pension fund PSP Investments has acquired full ownership from Hoffman Associates and its development and operating partner, Madison Marquette, in a deal valued at $1.8 billion. Monty once said about the project, "Our vision is to bring the neighborhood to the water." So welcome. Well, have a seat. So we are going to have some questions, and then that we'll discuss, and then we will open it up for questions that I'm sure that you might have. And I think I want to start with. I think there was a 2006 boat ride from the Anacostia Watershed Corporation, who tried to take investors and developers around to look at what was possible for the waterfront. Had you thought about the waterfront as a potential development opportunity before that?
First of all, thank you for having me here. I appreciate the time with everybody. What you're referencing right there was the very beginning, and my first reaction was, no way, it's too big, it's too complicated, there's a lot of scary things about it. That was the beginning of it, and then I started taking another look, and started adding partners, and then started to really get excited about the possibilities of what could happen.
Was that your first project that was that big on a waterfront of that scale?
Oh yeah, well yeah, it's huge. It's like asking Neil Armstrong, "Have you landed on the moon before?" This is like something that doesn't happen, right? And so that's why it was scary. But again, it was very enticing.
You did. Looking back now, because now you get a chance to look back.
Yeah.
Is it what you were thinking at that time, of that type of a vision?
Not really. What I was thinking at that time was how how to be competitive. There were 17 bidders coming in from Chicago. Buck came in from Chicago, Related down from New York, JBG locally. A lot of really good, fine development firms were going to compete with this property. I do want to mention that it was a very expensive, drug-out competition, just to be selected, and it culminated in, you were mentioning St. Augustine's a little bit ago. It culminated in the basement of St. Augustine's, the old church, not the new one. And I'll never forget, and I bring this up to Carl occasionally. We were down to three competitors. So out of 17 or whatever, I was in the top 3. And I'm in this sweaty basement. It was crowded, and the board for Anacostia Waterfront Commission was there to make that decision. And Carl Cole stood up. I didn't even know who this guy was. He stood up and he said, look, we could take the commercial route. We could take the easy way, or we could take the right way. And he advocated for us. And so when they sat down, everybody listens to Carl. And so here we are, but that was the start of it.
What was the most daunting aspect of that? Was it the actual project? Was it the community aspect of it, dealing with the DC government? What was all of the above?
Well, it was all of the above, and we have a mile of waterfront in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of interests in it, and these are conflicting interests. So we had to go to all the stakeholders, and at the same time try and envision what would work here. And in the very early formative stage, I was grasping at what could work. We were looking at above-ground parking lots and large blocks, and we were looking at the aquarium like Baltimore. How do we draw people here? I was in Baltimore. I talked to the board, hey, can you put an aquarium here, work with you on that. They didn't want to, but I'm glad for that. Hard Rock Hotel. This is, and I was thinking more on the tourist side of the equation. Live Nation was another. And so, but as I started to talk to the stakeholders, I learned, and my ideas and the contributions of everybody started flooding in, and it became very clear. We really wanted to make this part of DC. We wanted to bring the community to the water. And so that sort of was a guiding principle from that point on as we started to understand things more.
Were you aware of the history of urban development in Southwest and the complexities and what that had done in the mid-1900s for that area?
Yeah, there were urban renewal scars that had been, I really started to recognize it. And for generations, a couple of generations, Southwest, was known for a certain thing, whatever, you think it is, but it was that. It was the first and worst urban renewal in the country. And so, when Carl and others who have been part of the history of the wharf, when they would talk about the way things used to be, it was exciting. It was exciting to bring something new and back. And what it also meant to me was, because of Southwest, which actually was the wharf in the beginning, and the government named it Southwest, and everybody thought okay, well, this is Southwest. And so for me, I looked at, if I do something small, it won't work, because everybody has an impression of Southwest, what it is. And so I thought, well, if we go big, then we're going to change the whole paradigm. And that was a bit more risk, but going small was risk as well, because I'm not sure it would have worked. So the plan was to do something audacious, something big, something that changes the waterfront from what people's current impressions were. And I want to say this too. I was sitting at giving a presentation early on in the process, and I was sitting behind Eleanor Holmes Norton, Congresswoman Norton, and we were just sort of chatting while somebody else was talking, and she says, "So, what are you going to name it?" You know, I had a list of 6 names actually that I had paid a marketing team a lot of money to come up with. And so I just handed it to her. We're trying to be discreet and everything. And she looks at it, and she looks over at me. She says, "Oh, those are nice." And I thought, what's wrong? What? She says, "You know, we used to just call it the Wharf." So Eleanor Holmes Norton actually named it the Wharf. Right.
Oh, how interesting.
Renamed it, I should say.
So so the name obviously gives a continuity to what was and what is.
Yes.
Were there other aspects of that neighborhood and the historical aspects of that neighborhood that you consciously were trying to incorporate?
Yeah, there's a lot there, and as everybody knows, most people know, it was mostly asphalt parking lots because it had been scraped. But there were elements of history of the way it used to be and what it could be. And so we started talking to stakeholders. I think I had well over 800 meetings with stakeholders. This was Harbor Square and Harbor Island and all the neighbors to the east and south. And then further to the north, everything surrounding it. And so we started dialing in on what best to do with it. We had Capitol Yacht Club, which had been there since, Carl, help me out, 1892. And so that was an organization that we were absolutely going to work with, which we bought, we built a new clubhouse and docks and everything for them. We invited Phillips to stay in. They declined. They didn't want to do that. And we looked at all the other things that we could do to actually now bring, community together. And, excuse me, it was sort of this collaboration in the end. And I will say this, the one thing that was a challenge for me, was, listening to everybody has an opinion, and you can't be everything to everybody. If you could drop down to the lowest common denominator, and just even by definition, if you take a scatter shot of ideas across the spectrum and you do it right in the middle, well, that's average. We didn't want to be average, so we did our very best to be selective and be careful with everything we were doing, but to do something that would be extraordinary. I don't know what else on the history side that I can add to that.
Was the idea that you were going to be changing this neighborhood, and you were going to be creating something that was different from what had been there before? Were you hoping to change DC culture, waterfront culture? Did you think that this might spawn other developments, that this was going to be a new era, a new wave of how DC related to its waterfront?
It was definitely going to be a new era, and it was going to be something new. What I moved from was, when I first was looking at more tourism coming in, I started looking at local. And I felt, well, if it really works local, what we really want is authenticity. What we want is an extension of DC on the water. So we went about changing laws. The buildings are closer to the water than any other place. When you think about it, Washington, D.C. has 26 miles of waterfront, shoreline waterfront, but not one really waterfront city. I mean, you can say Georgetown is, but it's sort of divided off by Whitehurst Freeway, and it's set back. There's no true community that abuts the water. So one of the 7 legislative sessions that we had to change laws was to move the buildings closer to the water line. We also had 4 acts of Congress that we had to get through to pass federal regulations. We had 8 zoning hearings to change the zoning on the site. So that period of time took about 3 to 4 years in that time. But it was really about bringing the neighborhood to the water, and then bringing piers out on the water so we engage people with the water. People love water. Water is magic, right? I've said this several times, that if you're in a boat and another boat passes you, what do? You wave, right? If you're in a car, right, and somebody else passes you on the road, you don't wave. When you're on the water, there's this magic with it. And so everything that we could do to engage people in the water, the maritime with the activity going on the property, on the land, add music. One of the things that the city wanted us to do as well was to put an arts museum where the anthem is right now. And I felt there are a lot of museums in D.C., and I felt that's sort of a very quiet, introspective experience. Music is expression, it's emotional, it's gathering, it's community building, it's all that. So it took about a year to convince D.C. that music is art, and we were able to put in the anthem plus 2 other smaller venues. So it was these combinations, I think, that add. The fire pit, as an example. We have an open fire. People were shocked when I said, look, we're just open fire with like real wood. We're going to put it on the fire. So we've done this since caveman days. We can do this right here. And so I bought a trailer, this little camper from a guy in West Virginia for $1,300. And I parked it there, and we sold s'mores out of it for people. You know how many s'mores I sold last year? 38,000. 38,000 s'mores. You cannot be in a bad mood after you eat a s'more, right? So it's very actually primitive things. It's water, it's fire, it's music, it's food, it's drink. It's all this combination of things to do it. And doing it we were talking about this at the table a little bit ago. God doesn't make anything straight. And in a city, you have a lot of straight lines, you have a lot of patterns, you have a lot of things that set up, and in particular in new developments, and you can go to a lifestyle center in every city in the country, and there's one there. You wouldn't know if you were in Cleveland or in Denver. It's the same lifestyle centers. It's very commercialized, and it's soulless. And for us, we wanted to make something, again, that was authentically DC. And we intentionally made spaces smaller than we ordinarily would. We made them out of line. We made them out of whack. We put texture everywhere we possibly can, and we were obsessed with everything that is 30 feet and down, because that's your experience when you walk up and down the wharf. So those are the things that all came together. I even hired a guy from California, Richard Altoona is his name. He's a genius. He, unfortunately, he's passed now, but he helped Starbucks in their creation of the Starbucks look, right? Same with Pottery Barn. And if you go into Pottery Barn today and Starbucks, you'll see there's a lot of similarities in the interior aesthetic. We asked Richard to work on the outside. We flew him in from California. He says, what do you want me to do? And I said, okay, the landscapers are done. The landscape designs are done. Now I want you to take this and make this like an outdoor living room. And so he took that, and he changed the benches. He shrunk the spaces. If you notice, if you're walking along the water line, our lights, those have lamp shades on them like it's your living room. That's intentional to diffuse the light to make you look better, right? That's what we all want. We all want to look better. We want the right kind of lighting. We want the textures around us. We want the chatter, the positive energy. All those things were intentional.
So it was meant to be part of almost like the living room of the community that
Yes.
you were being invited into to be there. So you obviously were very aware of working with the community. How were you trying to make sure that the community that already existed there didn't feel left out of what you were doing?
Well, we built a park, and it is right next to the community. In fact, I named it Eleanor Holmes Norton Park because she named the wharf. I thought I could name a park after her. So it's a beautiful park, and we did that first. We didn't do the old, developer razzmatazz, and it never gets to that phase. We did that first for the community. We had design charrette meetings where everybody came in, they gave their opinion or their ideas to it. We included that as we created the park. You also notice, maybe, I would hope, that if you experience the wharf, if you're to the south and east of the wharf, near where the park is, that is quieter than as you go west and north. When you get to the fish market, or right before the fish market, you're at the Anthem, you're at this sort of apex there at the boathouse and the district pier and the fire pit that I speak of and all that. There's all kinds of chaos and commotion, intentionally so there, but it dials back as you get closer to the community.
There's no project that is going to go completely smoothly, so what was your biggest mistake with this project? We all are going to make mistakes.
I mean, I would say that, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything. There are nuanced mistakes that will always stay with me because it doesn't serve anybody well for me to say, hey, I could have done this better. I love the wharf and the community we created. I will say that when you have a period of 15 years of development, the economy changes, politics change, markets change, all those things change in that period of time. You can't possibly reduce that to a spreadsheet and assess the risk. The risk is enormous. We did very well, financially in the phase one. We entered into phase two. COVID hit us. It hit us all. That was a big surprise, but we weathered it. We got through to the other side, and we were able to, complete our mission. I'm very proud of that. Some people will look at things and they would change this, and that's just the nature of it. But I'm not going to be one of them. I like what we've got.
Well, I'll hold questions so we can get you the microphones around. So with that, what is your favorite spot on the wharf that you go back to again and again?
This is like picking your best child. I'm kind of. I like the fire pit area. I love going to concerts at the Anthem. I enjoy looking out at the crowds and how they're engaged with the bands, and just how all that works and comes together. I'm still marvel at the artists and the engagement between those who are coming and the artists as they're performing. I really enjoy that. I like sitting outside of Kerwin's and just watching the variety of people, young, old, white, black. It doesn't matter. The diversity is amazing. You have people who are dressed in tuxedos that are going to some event at the Intercon, and then you have people in shorts, and they're scurrying around, and it's just so much fun. So there's a lot of different things, but it's really what happens. What you understand is it becomes street theater. We're creating our own entertainment, and that's part of the magic, I think, behind it all.
What did it feel like the moment you realized you were done?
I'll never forget, we worked very hard. I'm going to go with phase one with respect to being done, because it's the most poignant. In 2017, October 11th of 2017, we had all the permits, finally. We worked real hard to have everything leased up. Foo Fighters were playing at the Anthem the following evening, and we were walking the wharf, my wife and I, and a lot of us who worked really hard for a long time on it, and we realized this would be the last moment that this is ours. From this point tomorrow morning, it's the public's, and it becomes not a project, becomes just like Georgetown or some other place. It becomes a neighborhood. And so that was a really cool night, exchange the next day. And it opened up almost like a theme park, because once we cut the ribbon, hotels were open, everything was open. And that was a really special moment.
Does it still feel that way? Does it feel like it's yours anymore, or does it feel like it's something you've kind of walked away from? Do you go back and revisit, or is it you've moved on?
I don't know. It's kind of like Frank Lloyd Wright going back to Falling Water, he probably says, yeah, I did that, but he doesn't live there or anything. It's someone else's. I look at this is the community's now. It's not, but I'm very proud of the team and the people I got to work with and the people that I met and all those who helped. It's just, that is really nice. It's a good feeling.
Do you feel like you have changed the way that you will now approach other projects because of this project? Is there something are you looking for more waterfront projects? Are you looking to try to do something on this? Now that you've conquered the mountain of this scale, are you going to go after more?
I'm 64. I'm going to age out, right? So
You're at the oldest inhabitants of Washington. That's not going to happen. It's not happening.
Inspiration accepted. It was one of a kind. It was a great experience. We are doing other projects in the South right now, across the river in West Falls Church, mixed-use developments. We love community. It's purpose. We're not just a rinse and repeat kind of developer. We love what we do. We love building community and things beyond just the bottom line. I'm not trying to sound corny or anything, but obviously we're in business for a profit. But we're proud of the things that we do. So we are doing some other things. We're looking at them. More in D.C. in fact, and across the river into the South. We're going on, but I've got a nice team that are taking the front lines. For me, it's a little bit like Groundhog Day, I'm kind of, I know the arguments, I pretty much know how it's going to end. Rather someone, younger, ambitious, do those sort of things, but I enjoy mentoring and the relationships.
What's the best response that you've had? If you're sitting around watching all of these people, watching the theater, do you have one comment that has stuck with you, that you've heard somebody say in awe or as they were looking around?
You know what? I'm going to give you a contrarian answer. It's the same response that I heard on that one row house that you mentioned at 1605 16th Street, the very first row house that I did, and I went incognito. Of course, nobody knew who I was anyway, it didn't matter. We had an open house. We were selling some condos, and so I wanted to hear everybody's raw feedback. So I'm amongst everybody in the open house, and I'll never forget this one person saying, these guys, whoever did this, they have a lot to learn, And it is just like, it's never going to work. And so I took that, and so that next day on October 12th of 2017, when everything was open, I'm sitting around the fire pit. I swear, it was the same person. It's like, the way they went about this, it'll never work. And I love that. I mean, in some contrarian way, I'm like, you got that, buddy, sure.
Well, as people interacting with you, people are experiencing it. For good, for bad,
I love honesty.
They're experiencing it. Well, I want to make sure that I have enough time to keep this open. So, Marcy, would you like to start us off with the question?
I would love to. I don't know if you remember me, Monty. I changed my hair color. But
very nice.
Thank you. I was on the zoning commission. I think we had 10 public hearings. What I have heard, though, about the project, that it has not met, now you'll remember me, it's affordable housing goals. Can you address that?
Yeah, that's just a mistruth. That's not the truth. I have 235 affordable residences at the wharf, and we actually exceeded. So whatever you're getting your information from, it's just not true. 235. And what I'm proud of is you would have no idea. You have no idea I had 235 probably. They look like every other unit. Yeah. In fact, not only we have 235 units, but if we're staying in that realm of civic responsibility, I'm very proud of the LSDBE participation that we had. We exceeded our goals there. In terms of jobs, we exceeded our goals there. We went to Ward 8, 7, and 6 to find or to connect people who wanted to work with the jobs, the construction jobs that we were creating. And I'm very proud of the $200 million that came from the city on TIF pilot bonds. That property only produced $4 million a year in real estate taxes. Today, it was quoted in the paper of $50 million. It's actually over $60 million in taxes are coming to the city every year. And that's not including income taxes and other things. That's sales taxes and real estate taxes and parking taxes, hotel taxes. It's over 60, it's like 65 million in that range. And so much so that we paid those bonds off that I mentioned about 15 years earlier than was expected. It was the best investment the district could have ever made.
Well, I just want to tell everybody that this man, during the process, it was very, very difficult. And I don't know if he got an ulcer from this, but I would have. I almost did. And the only thing I want to mention, Monty, is that since you refinanced the project, maybe you can give some of the money for our archives. Not that I want to put you on the spot.
That's the first time I've heard something like that. Thank you for your points.
Can I ask you to give, because affordable housing is a big topic, certainly in the city right now. Can you give us all just a quick reminder of how that works for developers in the city? Do you negotiate a percentage of affordable housing with the DC government? How does that process actually work?
Yes and yes. There are standards for which, MIZ, that's part of particular zoning. It's usually around 8%. There are others when you're buying city property as much as 30%. Ours was a combination. Ours was in the early stages of affordable housing coming in the city. Remember this because these were permits back in 2009. So at that period of time, we were very progressive. I would say during that period of time, we had affordable, and then we had workforce housing, and we had a few other iterations in between all that. But there's not one stop formula, but pretty much the developers know the rules at this day and age, and as far as I know, it's executed well. I could go on. Everything can be improved. But, yeah.
Okay, great. Tim.
Sorry about that, too close. My name is Tim Hannibal, and I really just want to say thank you because I've been lucky enough not to live in one of your projects, but to be a neighbor at 1631 16th, so I live next to Morgan Place and right up the way from 1605.
Yeah.
Great neighbors. I knew people who lived in both of those, fantastic projects. And 4 years ago, I moved to Harbor Square, so now I'm a neighbor of the wharf. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done. I probably walk the entire wharf 2 or 3 times a week, and it's just as you say. I start in the park, and I walk my way up. Sometimes I sit in one of those pretty amazing lounge chairs that are just sitting there. Some are in the shade. I make it all the way up to the fish market. I mean, it's just incredible. And I stop, and I did have a s'more last year for the first time, so it's great.
I love that.
I want to point out one thing in particular that I found. I went on a tour, and a very nice guy named Patrick from the wharf led the tour, the walking tour. And I said, what is the deal with Eleanor Holmes Norton Park? Because you can't name a park in D.C. unless that person's been dead for 2 years, because I did some of that. It's owned by the wharf, so you got to name it for her. And he told me why. I didn't know about her naming the wharf, but I did know about the 4 pieces of legislation that she shepherded through. But I want to thank you in particular for one little tiny thing in that park, the mound. Are you familiar with the mound? The mound, Patrick explained, it's this little mound of grass where the kids play. And he said, well, it was construction, it was just a mound of dirt. And the neighbors started playing there. And then before they put the turf down, they erased the mound. And the neighbors came and said, please put the mound back. So there's a mound, it's about 2 feet high. And honestly, little kids, 2 and 3-year-olds, love to roll up and down it. And this year when it snowed, they went sledding down it on their butts, the 2-year-olds. So I just, I point that out because it's small, but it's just a fantastic place to live. You did bring the neighbors to the water, but you also brought so much more. And just one last point, I promise I'll sit down because I'm sounding sycophantish, but the diversity of the people who are drawn there is just stunning. It's just stunning. Everyone goes to the wharf. The municipal fish market is still there. The cruise lines are still there. Of course, the buses don't come there anymore. They can park, you know, and people can walk. But again, just thank you. My last question is, my only question is, a couple or 3 years ago, you had the tall ship Providence docked at the wharf. And did you ever think about maybe having a replica of the Pearl at the wharf? Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, and Carl's joking, laughing, he knows. First of all, thank you for all the kind words. And it doesn't surprise me about, you know, the neighbors coming back and say, hey, we like that dirt pile, put some grass on it and do that. And it doesn't surprise me that all happened without my knowledge. And all that's really good. And those 2-year-olds that you talk about, you ever stop over at the water park where the water's shooting out and you hear the belly laughs and everything? I mean, that's a really cool, yeah, well, yeah, and it's really a cool part of it. What was your question?
About I can't
The
wait
Pearl.
to take my,
Oh, the Pearl.
I can't wait to take my granddaughters to that water park because it's so much fun. But
Yeah,
yes, the Pearl,
me too,
the
actually.
naked Pearl Street, you know,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, no, we got engaged a little bit and then not, and then a little bit and not. There was a lot of good intentions, but just couldn't work it out. And in fact, there are a lot of historic markers, literally historic markers, through the wharf. Thurgood Marshall lived there. Oh, in fact, regrets. Okay, here we go.
There you go.
All right, so there's a tree that was planted outside of the church, and the tree was planted by Thurgood Marshall. And we had since rebuilt the church and did some condos over there, but I wanted to save that tree. Spent $80,000 moving it, and we moved it a few hundred feet so that it could survive and it would be out of the way. And the guys didn't take a couple of the pipes out. They had to be on rollers, and it was a big tree. And it died. And I really feel like, you know, maybe if I would have looked at it, you know, we would have got those pipes out of there or whatever. Anyway, it was a miss. And so, yeah, I kind of regret that part.
Did you replant a tree in his honor?
We have done several different things on that. I don't have it on. We have actually trees from the same grove of the new 9/11 trees in New York City. We took a couple of those. We planted in different areas, and then we did something, I'm not even sure offhand anymore what it was. We did put a plaque out, amongst others, and Thurgood Marshall's wife, Cecilia, I think it was her name, she's now passed in 2022, I think. We brought her by to see the plaque of her husband on that, and that was pretty touching.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Lisa Nickerson. Just wanted to say that the first time I went down there was, I think, right after when Phase 1 was just coming open. And I was so intrigued and delighted by the features on the piers that were clearly designed for children and families to get them out and enjoying those unique places that were designed for them. How did that come about? Because I've been to lots of waterside developments and I've never seen anything, I mean, the park, yes, the mound, yes, but for children right out on the piers, you know, in most places you just see fishermen and nothing else. But there are really wonderful things for families to sit on or to do on those piers. And I wondered, whose idea was that? Was that something that was in there from the beginning, or was that something that just developed because, hey, somebody had a great idea and they carried through on it? How did that come about?
We had many sessions, thank you for noticing, we had many sessions early in the process where we were trying to develop stories. How do we explain the history? How do we tell the story? And that was one of the ways that we were able to do that, is on those columns on your way out on District Pier, which I think is what you're referring to. Yeah, that along with a series of other sort of surprises that you're walking around, you know.
I thought that was brilliant, and to have the hot dog and marshmallow, you know, fireplaces, and it's just wonderful. It's so full of imagination, in addition to just investment dollars considerations. To have things that showed real imagination out there was, I thought, fantastic.
Well, that makes me happy that you enjoyed it.
Hi, I'm Barbara Ehrlich.
Hi,
and
Barbara.
I was part of the Washington Waterfront Association, which you dealt with
Yeah.
quite a bit during the early days. And I don't know that the association members are even alive today, but on behalf of them, I want to say thank you for all of the sessions that I attended. This session right here today is a great reminder to me of the many hours that went into both your time and citizens' time in Southwest, where I still live, and it's one of the greatest little communities in the District of Columbia. Those of us who live there know its great value, know the value of the waterfront, which has only been enhanced with your efforts. So thank you very much. And also, personally, I'm one of the people that is commemorated in some way along the waterfront. And it's great for me to take my friends there to show off and to say that, you know, I was part of this in a very small way, but I was still part of it. And it's a great place to live. And so thank you very much.
Barbara, I want to tell you that I am so appreciative of your involvement. You were more than a small part. You were the community, and you were an influencer. You are an influencer. And a lot of people followed your lead. And you were a voice of reason. You would look at things. You weren't always agreeing to it, but you were always fair. And you had your own ideas that you pitched in. You and your husband. I very much, I will always remember that, and thank you.
So do I understand that there were over 500 community meetings?
No, there's double that.
Really, double
There was
that.
about 1,000 different community meetings, and Barbara can testify she was at them all.
And as an old person, I had the fun of going there just the other day to Lamani's.
Oh,
The
yeah.
second floor, there's all glass. Looking out at the wall, I'm looking at all the glass
Yeah.
from Lamani's restaurant and having scallops and calamari, which I don't get any usually. And it was just, and a storm came up. And you talk about wanting the district people to come and be near the water. I felt like I was enjoying it from above. And you know, it's beautiful. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming to Lamani's. It really is a special place. All that entire glass surround. It kind of transports you, right? You know, yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I think you just confirmed something for all of us. Thank you for a job well done. Yes. We often hear governments need to build affordable housing. I think the truism is government do not build affordable housing. Developers do. It's a joint venture. And I think you confirmed that already.
Yes.
The other thing I'd like to say, you mentioned that everybody listens to Carl Cole. Yes, that is the truth. Thank you.
Well, the only thing I can think of is Carl Cole listens to Risa. So maybe this all goes to her.
I think it sounds like there's a happy community, obviously, and happy experiences for people that are participating in your projects. But do you have a kind of definition of success that you keep in your mind for particular projects?
You know, whenever I first started the wharf, and we'd be going up to New York a lot because the architects were up in New York, and I would take the train. So I'd come back from the train, I'd go to Union Station, and intentionally a cab would pull up, and I'd ask the cab driver, take me to the wharf. And they would look like, huh? What wharf? There's no wharf around here. You're wrong city. No, anyway. And then, so that happened for a little while, and then after we finished phase one, I'll never forget this. You know, had the radio as WMAL riding in my car, and you would normally hear them come on. Oh, it's 72 degrees at Reagan National Airport. You know, but this time they said 72 degrees at the wharf. I thought, yes, we got it. Yeah.
Marjorie, did you have a question?
I was on the ANC during the building of
Yeah.
the wharf and was part of the endless meetings. And I want to say something on behalf of the community, that Monty worked with the community. We argued endlessly. We argued endlessly on the percentage of affordable housing, on the levels of working housing, on the all of everything, on the views, the views from the arena stage straight out to the water, on the way in which the balance would work all the way from the near where the end of the wharf, the end of the walk on the water is, all the way down to the fish market. So it was a continuous waterfront. Some of it is used more by local people than visitors, some by visitors. They never go where we go, where Harbor Square opens up on the waterfront and it's quiet. And then you go further along and it gets a little bit more active around politics and prose, where you can sit outside. And then you go and there's suddenly the world opens up. It's a continuous experience, but it's not an accidentally continuous experience. I was in Oslo only a few years ago. And it's in Oslo's waterfront that I could see the source of the imagination for what became our waterfront. And I am very taken with how successful it is and how much a community worked with Monty and Monty with the community. And he didn't only build along the waterfront, he's also built on 4th Street, where there is a stunning building that's over 30% affordable housing. And I think that really is a mark of where the ANC and the community and Monty formed this new vision of what could be Southwest.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I read in a previous interview that you had done that if you had to say something to your 25-year-old self, that you would tell yourself to quit worrying, you're in for a hell of a ride. Do you know what's next on this ride? Apparently, in addition to being one of the a liaison between developers and communities, because it seems you have incredible success at doing that, where do you see yourself going from here?
Well, we're looking at some properties. Well, actually, we're doing something in Richmond right now. We're going to change Richmond, and I love Richmond. And it's working with a group on about 9 different blocks in Richmond, in downtown Richmond, and it'll take a little over a decade to do that. We're also looking at Research Triangle in the Carolinas, and we have a nice size project there. Raleigh, again, it's called Seaboard, but we're taking this what we've learned and we're applying it to other places, and that's not a rinse and repeat kind of thing. It's not. We take what we've learned, but we apply it in a different way, because every place is different. The market's different, the population, the culture, all that. So we're respectful of those places. Yeah, you learn a lot. Unless you go through something like this, you can't really read about it and figure you know it. You have to experience it. And the engagement with the people was very real. That was ongoing for a long time. It made us smarter. It made us better. It made the project better. And that's where we want to be. And I presume it'll be that same process everywhere we go.
Well, are there any last questions before we go? Because I think we're just about at our time. And I want to say not only congratulations on the project, but you are now have become part of DC history in a way that most people cannot. So you will forever be associated with not just the wharf, but hopefully in 160 years when they're meeting here somewhere, they can be talking about the evolution of it, and you will be an integral part of that.
I hope the
So thank
picture
you
is
for
a
doing
little
that.
bit better, not so grainy.
Yes. We'll get a good one. You still have a while. You have a while to go. Well, thank you all for your questions, and thank you for coming today. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we have a summer break for July and August. So stay tuned. We will see you back here hopefully the third Thursday in September. And Carol Schwartz will be here talking about her life in politics. And take a look for your emails because we will give you updates on the DC archives as well. And we'll say, so thank you again. Have a great summer. Stay safe out there.